Hi, and welcome to Fearless. This is a podcast about strength and resilience and rising anyway. In preparation for this episode, I was really struck by a quote. Fear doesn't usually scream, it whispers, and then it slowly takes over the conversation. This is something that I think initially we don't always think about, but this episode is really going to focus on that fear that shows up after the emergency happens, when life gets quiet again, when you kind of go back to that normal everyday life, and when everyone thinks that you're okay because the tragedy of it all is over, and when your mind finally has time to sit in what happened and speak back at you. So for me, that fear showed up one night in a way that I didn't expect. It was the night that I had my first panic attack after everything had happened with Katie. It didn't happen while she was still in the hospital. It didn't happen at the height of the chaos. It happened weeks later. We had been home for about a month. We went to do a follow-up appointment with her neurosurgeon in preparation for her radiation. And during that visit, he began to walk us back through that initial surgery that he had, the severity of the bleed, and the moments that he wasn't sure that she was going to survive. And really, up until that moment, I hadn't allowed myself to sit with that part of the story. I'd kind of tucked it away and focused on what I could control, focused on what came next, kind of handling all the crises as they were happening around me. But that day, those details resurfaced and kind of hung out with me for a while. So that night when I woke up about 2 a.m, I was having those memories kind of looping through my mind, and I had this vivid image that I could not stop thinking about, which was an operating room, Katie on the table, the neurosurgeon at the front by her head, and kind of people moving all around her to keep her alive. And my heart started to race. I started to not be able to breathe. I couldn't catch my breath. And my chest started to feel tight, but my head just wouldn't stop replaying that over and over and over again. And I remember thinking, why now? Why, first of all, why at 2 a.m? And why is this surfacing now? We were kind of so far past all of this. She was kind of entering that next phase. We weren't in immediate danger anymore. Why was I having these feelings? She survived. She's here. This shouldn't be happening. But my mind didn't know that at that time. So in the quiet of that early morning, I had everything pushed down, finally came back up, and I couldn't cope with it all at once. My body was reacting before my mind could really catch up. And it showed up again in different ways, though differently. So I started having panic attacks about the what ifs. So what if it happens again? What if this AVM ruptures again? What if radiation doesn't work? What if she never regains everything that she's lost back? These fears didn't come one at a time. They came like a flood. They just consumed my mind. And even now, I still find myself pushing down some of these feelings just to protect myself from the pain and imagining them too deeply. And then after this came the mourning part of it. So I went from fear and anxiety into mourning, and it was really kind of mourning what life looked like before and what it looks like now. I was mourning things that we already had set in motion for her life, and mourning of the future that we had dreamed for her that may never come to fruition now. And no one really talks about this phase of the healing process. Not only did we have hopes and dreams for Katie, but she had hopes and dreams for herself. And while that path doesn't have to end, it definitely looks different now than it did 6 months ago. And there were moments when I didn't know what she would get back. So those were scary. Those times sitting there thinking, what is independence going to look like for her? What does her future relationships look like? What does college or adulthood look like for her? And every step we get away from the incident, I'm able to see things more clearly and able to see that there's this recovery process that we're going through that's going to allow her to have these moments, but they're definitely going to be different than they would have been had we been on the same path that we were before August 12th. And that's where my fear really truly revealed itself. We're in these moments, not in the healing, but in the unknown aftermath of everything that we had been through and kind of what was to come next for her. And then from there was the guilt. So, the feelings of I should just be grateful that she's still here. I should be happy that she's alive, healing, moving forward. All of these feelings just continually hitting me. I can remember one instance in particular where guilt just kind of felt overwhelming and just kind of consumed me for a while. Every year our family does family photos. It's kind of my most favorite moment of the year. It's something that I look forward to. My husband jokes that I enjoy this way more than I do Mother's Day, and that's honestly the truth. So we had all gotten ready and gotten over to take our photos, and we have the same dear friend take them every single year. So it's comfortable and it's a familiarity that we all have. And I honestly thought it needed to happen this year regardless. Like there was just, we had come so far. I needed to have this moment with her. But when we got there, it was clear that she was tired and quickly becoming exhausted. She was complaining of some stomach pains. So we began to rush through, knowing that we didn't have much time with her in that situation. We needed to get her home. She probably needed to lay down, all the things. And when we got the photos back, I was really able to see it clearly. Like when you're in the moment, you're not always seeing what's truly happening, but seeing it in a photo just made it clear to me how much this entire situation had taken from her. And there was really one photo in particular that hit me harder than all the other ones. Every year since she's been 9 months old, Rob has a tradition of holding her up in the palm of his hand, and we get a photo of that. And through the years, it's changed from being completely up to holding her more down by his waist, but it's a photo that he has to have every single year. And this year, it was no different. He was determined to get this photo. So when this photo came back, as I had done in past years and 100, put out time and time again, I put together a collage of all the photos since she was 9 months old till today. And in doing that, it made it even more clear that something was missing. There was like the sparkle that wasn't in her eyes. She definitely looked tired. She looked sick. And that photo in particular hit me because I had so many other things to compare it to. And I was able to see how drastically all of this had hit her. And I mourned that moment. In that moment, I was sad. I was really, really sad. And I felt ashamed for mourning it. And I kind of held on to it to myself for a couple days because I felt bad for her. I felt bad for us. And I felt guilty for feeling that way. Like it didn't feel right for me to be having these feelings. And I can remember calling up my best friend and telling her about this and just saying, I feel like such a terrible mom for feeling this way. Like, how can I grieve something when my child has already beaten these odds just to be here? So I want to say, if you're feeling guilty about mourning something like this, you're not alone. Like, it's a normal feeling. And I feel like it's a natural progression through the healing process. And this is a type of fear that we just really don't talk about, these feelings that arise after the situation, because that immediate crisis leaves you in survival mode. Like, you don't have time to think through the what ifs. You don't have time to think about what comes next. You're just really kind of dealing with what's being presented to you at the time. And you're really only able to focus on that because it's what's directly in front of you. But it's when all of that noise is taken away and you're given that moment afterwards where the chaos kind of dies down, that fear becomes super loud. Like, it then presents itself and it becomes overwhelmingly loud. And that's the fear that we can't control. I could almost control the chaos better than I could control this quietness, if that makes sense. Because this was harder to live with than dealing with crisis after crisis after crisis. Like, all of that was moving so quickly. Like, we would put out one fire and then another fire would start. And that was almost easier than just having to sit in these feelings. But what I've learned is it's okay to sit in these feelings. It's okay to have them and it's okay to work through them because life is different and it may never be the same as it was before. And that's okay. And learning how to adjust to that new normal is all part of it because life can't return back to what it was. We've been forever changed in the situation. And most people who go through similar situations are changed forever. Like, there's just a part of it that'll never come back to where it was. And all these experiences shape us and change us and make us look at things differently. So how could you go back to acting the same way that you did before? But I also feel like we have to give ourselves that space to have those breakdowns because it does not mean that we're weak. It doesn't mean that we're not able to handle it, that we're not strong. It just means that we're building another layer of strength, almost like a callus. And that's how I had to look at it and just allow myself to have those moments and feel the feels that I'm going to feel for it. I think many times, and still to this day, I'm often told, like, God will never give you more than what you can handle. And I believe that that's our thoughts too. Like, it's not just a physical, he won't give you more sickness than what you can handle, but our minds are there to protect us and allow us to process things when it's ready to process and when we're ready for it. While we were in the hospital, My mind knew that that was not the time that I needed to be processing all of this. I couldn't handle it at that time, quite honestly. Like, I wasn't ready to be there. I needed to be in that crisis mode. So my mind waited. And when the time came and the danger had passed, it allowed me to kind of have those fears surface, not to hurt me, but to really help me heal from this process and work through all these feelings that honestly you probably should be having during these crises, but you're just not able to. So I want to just kind of end this episode saying that fear may speak loudly, but it doesn't get the final word. You get those final words. And if you feel like your fear is speaking loudly right now, it doesn't mean that you're failing or doing any of this wrong. It means that you're human and that you've been through something that matters. You don't have to silence the fear to move forward. Sometimes you just need to learn to sit with it and hear what it's having to say, and just kind of take that next step. So similar to what we would do in a crisis situation, but you have to allow yourself to go through those feelings. So our next episode will be coming soon, and we're going to talk about fear in the waiting, the in-between moments that answers don't seem to come very quickly, and time seems to slow down. So stay tuned for that. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to this podcast. I appreciate it. This is Fearless, stories of strength, resilience, and rising anyway. Until next time, stay strong.